Mr. President, I take the floor because of a letter that I received in my office a few days ago. This was a letter that was mailed to our office via email on March 23rd, and I just want to read it. Hello, Senator. My name is, I'm going to omit the name. My name is, and I am terrified to go to school. I've lived in your state for almost 6 years, and never have I been more scared than I am when I go to school every day. My father was in the Army. My mother works with Wear Blue, Run to Remember, a military nonprofit for Gold Star families. I am no stranger to death, and yet I am scared that one day that may be waiting for me at school. I lived in Lakewood, Washington. I went to St. Francis Cabrini, and we once had a lockdown because a car ran down our fence while children were at recess. I was present during the shooting at Fort Hood in 2013. My sister can't remember, but she was so close to the perpetrator. I still have nightmares from both of these incidents. I'm supposed to be safe at school, but today, when it was rumored that someone was planning to target our school out of revenge on an ex-partner, I was reminded of another day I spent huddled under a desk in art class, feverishly reciting the Hail Mary. Something needs to change. I'm not the only kid who feels this way. Why should I be scared to go to school? This letter came to my office on March 23rd. A few days later, this student in all America woke up to the story of the shooting in Nashville. Why should I be scared to go to school? In January of this year, just a few months ago, there was an incident that also attracted significant attention in Virginia and around the country, where a teacher, first grade teacher Abby Zwerner at the Rich Neck Elementary School in Newport News, Virginia, saw a 6-year-old pointing a gun at her, and she acted heroically to come toward the student to try to take the gun, and she was shot and badly, badly wounded, but she was able to protect the lives of her students and others in the school building. She is recovering slowly from that and just starting to talk about that experience. Mr. President, I went to Newport News about a month after that incident in early February to meet with a number of the parents and teachers, and they wanted it off the record, no press, just let's sit down and talk. And I'm going to respect their privacy by not talking about, their names, the names of their kids, or particulars of their story, but I can summarize it. These parents are afraid when they drop their kids off at school. And they're afraid that when they come at the end of the day, something might have happened to their children. They're afraid that they may get a call in the middle of the day that something has happened to their kids. And the teachers who were with me that day, they have that same fear. They go into these classrooms every day because they love children, but they are afraid now to do that job. Lord knows we've got teacher shortages all over this country, and we're working our best to try to attract people to the profession, but these teachers, many of whom had been in the profession for decades, they're now afraid for the first time in their lives to go to school every day. Emergency room visits for gun-related injuries in Virginia increased by 72% from 2018 through 2021. In an average year, about 1,020 people die in Virginia, and another 2,050 or so are wounded by guns. And among young people, guns are the leading cause of death among children and teens in Virginia. An average of 85 children and teens die by guns every year. 55% of these deaths are homicides. Others are accidental shootings or deaths by suicide. I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what to do with this. I react negatively when in the aftermath of shootings, it sometimes seems like all members of Congress can say is that they're heartbroken and they send thoughts and prayers to the family. That starts to sound very hollow. Of course, thoughts and prayers are meaningful, but it starts to sound very hollow to those who are victimized by gun violence when that is the response and nothing more. But let me be self-critical. I'm not into offering hollow thoughts and prayers. I tend to say I'm heartbroken for the families, and I think we need to do things in the Senate like do an assault weapons ban or other meaningful legislation that would keep kids safe. Some of the things we ought to do in Congress are things that we have done in Virginia in recent years, and that has made our state safer, but there's nothing you can do that's going to completely eliminate this problem. But I was challenging my staff the other day, if we think thoughts and prayers and nothing else is hollow, then saying we should do an assault weapons ban when we know that's not going to get 60 votes on the floor of the Senate. I do think we should do an assault weapons ban. When we had one in the 90s, it worked. But I also know to a certainty that in the near future, there is zero chance that this body is going to get to 60 votes for an assault weapons ban or other kinds of gun safety regulations that would take a student and make her less afraid to go to school, or a parent and teacher and reduce their fear. And so what I'm challenging people around me, including my own staff, and challenging myself on is, have we allowed this tough issue, the debate about this tough issue, to get a little stale? Thoughts and prayers, assault weapons ban, thoughts and prayers don't do anything to help people. Assault weapons ban might, but we're not going to pass it. Have we allowed it to get stale, and are there solutions and strategies that we're not talking about that we might be able to find common ground on? Because if anything should cry out to us and demand that we find common ground, is that we not do nothing, that we not listen to the fears of students and parents and teachers and just say, well, that's just the way life is in America, right? That's just American life. We can't be complacent about it. And Mr. President, I'm just thinking about our differences in age. My children are out of high school now. My youngest is 10 years out of high school. You still have school-age kids, so you're still grappling with the reality of safety in schools at the pickup and the drop-off. This has gotten so much worse just in the last 10 years. My children all went to the Richmond Public Schools, which are urban public school, setting, in a community that had some significant problems with violent crime. But my wife and I were never nervous when we took them to school. And we never worried about getting a text or something in the middle of the day. And we never were afraid that when we got there at the end of the day, something would happen. And that was just a little bit over 10 years ago. My children finished high school my youngest, right before the Sandy Hook shooting. So they were not in the K-12 system in Virginia when there has just been this steady drumbeat of one school shooting after the next. They weren't terrorized or afraid. Their teachers weren't. My wife and I weren't. And that was just 10 years ago. How much more devastating the problem of school shootings has become in the last 10 years. And so I just take the floor to say, I need to write something back to this youngster. Her question, why should I be scared to go to school? I've got to write her and respond in some way, and I don't really know now what to say. But I've challenged my team, and I challenge my colleagues that we're in a recess period where we're back in our states, we're talking to people, we're hopefully getting ideas from them and listening to them. Let's ask some young people who go to school, let's ask some teachers, let's ask some parents of school kids if they have ideas for us that are new or different. Let's ask them whether our political debate about solutions has grown stale and whether there are solutions that we haven't yet contemplated that could respond to the question that this student has raised. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor. And the absence of a quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Baldwin.
Might I ask that the quorum call be suspended?
The senator from Virginia, the quorum is suspended without objection.
I have 6 requests for committees to meet during today's session of the Senate, and they do have the approval of both the majority and minority leaders.
Duly noted.
I now note the absence of a quorum.